I suppose I wanted to come back on here and sort of say, as somebody who's been through a lot of domestic abuse, particularly at the hands of my brother with psychosis, Dermot, unfortunately, has a number of years ago, prior to his diagnosis, broke my nose with 2 punches. Lives in absolute denial of the fact. I've also had the third finger here of my left hand injured with soft tissue damage. I've been throttled, and there have been bruises seen by my doctor, by him, and on the same night he also punched me in my head, knocking me into a concussion. And only tonight, my own mother, because she's so in defence of my brother, knowing I'm wearing a fairly strong woolen cardie, grabbed me, and unfortunately, as you'll see if I turn my camera to you, has left me with some scratches along my arm, because my mother actually tried to grab me out of his room as I went in to make his bed and turn down the radio stereo. Now, I know it's only minor, but this is the kind of thing that happens when you've got people with mental health issues in the family. As said, I have had bruising to my neck where I've been throttled. I've also had a concussion, soft tissue damage done to my finger, recorded, of course, in Galway Hospital. And obviously with the concussion, that has been recorded by my own GP, and the broken nose has been recorded in Drogheda Hospital, Dundalk Local Hospital, Navan, Tullamore first, and unfortunately still never got corrected all these years ago from 2005. And unfortunately it seems to be a thing, because I'm short in height, that members of my family seem to think it's okay to bully me. So I've basically put a lot of people out of my life, and it's just looking like I'm just going to have to totally turn my back on my mum and my sibling, because I feel it's the only way that either of them will get the long-term help that I feel is needed. While my mum's not in a natural active psychosis at the moment, I do believe as she gets older she's going to need hospital care. Sorry, as you'll see, my cardigan has been basically ripped open by my mum. The button flew open because of being dragged. But this top button I leave open when I'm lying down on the couch, because I feel that it's too close to my neck. So I become slightly anxious with that just up at my neck. It's just uncomfortable when I lie down, like it just tends to hit me, and I just find that somewhat uncomfortable. So as I said, my mother lives in total denial of my brother's psychosis, as she does her own. She basically thinks we're all after her former house and the land that was around it, which has been leased out for the last 12-13 years by a guy called, I think is John or Michael Talbot, a farmer. So, you know, again, totally deluded. You know, the way I see it is, I wouldn't go anywhere near that house. It's been damaged beyond recognition. My brother has smashed internal walls, he's broken windows, in pure and utter temper. As said, he just lives in absolute denial, as does my mother. I mean, at one point with one of my mother's breakdowns, she actually jumped, I think was a 6-foot church wall, and broke her wrist in a few places, needing to have a wrist pinned to actually get it to nip back. And another occasion, I believe she ran naked through the village when I wasn't present to see her. Again, very humiliating for me. You know, people do talk. It's not forgotten. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why my mum's, I suppose, glad to be away from there for the last year. But it is, for me, I have to say, it can be embarrassing, and it can be quite humiliating. You know, and I know it might sound cruel for me to walk away, but that is the only way I feel that they'll get help. It's that I log it with the Gardaí and log it with mental health services, and then hopefully that they will take the appropriate action from there. I do believe my brother needs long-term incarceration because of medication. He's a danger, and unfortunately My mother just does not seem to get it. She seems to think there's nothing wrong, and she buys him drink constantly, which makes matters a lot worse because it aggravates a bad situation. But I just said I would put it out there on YouTube because I think it's important in this day and age that we talk about mental health. Am I ashamed? No, I'm more embarrassed. I'm embarrassed and humiliated that this is a factor in my life that I have to deal with. Don't get me wrong, I love my mom and brother, but my other sibling has also chosen to walk away. My younger sibling, Sean, is unable to handle it. So unfortunately, it's been on my shoulders. And as I said, for me, I just feel it's getting beyond me as well. And there's no point my mom hoping her sister in Cork will keep her away from medication. I can understand that my mom feels like she was doped on it and overly medicated. But I feel that after an acute breakdown passes, that if a doctor will be good enough to find the minimal amount of dosage that a person can actually fully function rather than being doped, because a lot of the medication will cause sort of, I think is it they call it activia or something like that, or something of that nature, where the legs and arms become restless. There are chewing movements of the mouth. For other people, some of the tablets will cause a lulling of the head, so the head will go down. Inability to look at the sun or to be kind of out in bright light. So photosensitivity. I know there's weight gain with the medication, but I believe it's really, really important that, particularly in the case of my mum and brother, that medication is kept up. And I feel personally that long-term care is the best thing for them both. Like my younger sibling, I just feel it's really, really important. And I suppose for my mum, Fionnuala, she's almost 64, and lives in total denial of the fact that she's got a psychosis. She keeps saying that marijuana is grass, it's harmless. Let me tell you, it's not harmless. I've seen the damage it's done to Mum. I've seen the breakdowns. I've seen the result of that psychosis. And it's not pleasant dealing with it. There have been other humiliating episodes. It's just so difficult for people to understand. You get loads of sympathy if you get something like cancer or MS or an illness that is visible. But when you're aggressive and people just put it down to being nasty, and they've got no idea that there's a mental health issue going on until they see irregular, abnormal behaviours. So, as I said, I thought I would put it out there on YouTube, and hopefully there are other people who can understand my situation, and hopefully that there'll be a little bit of empathy. Now, excuse my voice, it is early hours of the morning, and I'm slightly, I suppose, shook up because my mother's actually grabbed me while I went up to make my brother's bed, and also to get him to turn down the stereo radio. But again, I do feel it's really vital that long-term care is the way to go for my mum and my younger sibling. As said, my other youngest sibling, he has chosen to walk away because he's unable to deal with it. And he wants to get on with his life and his career, and he's put them more or less out of his life. He rarely will answer my mum's phone calls. If she rings, he's got an excuse to get off the phone. I just feel like he despises my mum deep down. The message he's been getting from my stepdad and from cousins is, oh, well, your mom's mentally ill, your mom's mad, your mom's crazy, your mom's a psycho, your brother's a psycho. They pretty much will say the same thing about me, except thankfully I've never had a breakdown. I'm grateful. Yes, I get my periods of getting down days, but thank God I've never had anything worse than that, other than I had a very short-lived period of dark depression. Now, thankfully, without medication, I snapped out of that. I do know what the dark tunnel is like. And thankfully for me, it was only like a number of days and I was able to come back out of that. But I would not wish that on my worst enemy. Now that's some years ago, that's back 2005, and as I said, thankfully it was about 3-4 days lasting and it was gone. That happened twice in my life. But you know, as I said, thank God I've never had a psychosis. Thank God I have never had a breakdown. I have a very strong religious faith. I don't want to be shoving that down anyone's throat, but all I'm saying, for me, that's what's kept me sane, is close conscious contact with God in my daily life. You know, I'm also grateful for the friends that I've made. You know, and I do feel that it's important for me at this point in my life, at almost 40 years old, you know, to put my brother and mum out of my life once and for all, because I'm just so done with the denials that they live in. As I said, I feel that my brother is quite capable of murdering me or my mother, and possibly a member of the public if he got angry enough. So that is why I'm saying, when he gets in these rages, I believe, and when he's off medication, he is a danger. And I hate saying that about my own sibling, but that is what I firmly now believe. And unfortunately, it's looking like I will have to, despite Stormophilia or Hurricaneophilia, I believe it's important that I report this to my doctor and indeed to the Gardaí. I do believe that my brother and mum potentially long-term need incarceration. It's a harsh way to go, but that's just how I see it. Mum will defend Dermot because she doesn't believe she's got a psychosis and Dermot can do absolutely no wrong in her eyes, despite the